So, welcome to the Graphisoft Community Workflow webinar series. Now we're up to episode 7. I'm hoping everyone that's attending today has been able to catch up on our previous 6 episodes. For those that have not met me before, I'm your host, Nathan Hildebrandt, and today we have Pedro Melo, the CEO and architect from TERNULLOMELO Architects based in Lisbon, Portugal. And then you're going to correct the terminology or the naming, pronunciation once again of that. But today, Pedro is going to be discussing my favorite topic. Now, he's going to be talking about Archicad templates. Now, for those that know me well, they would have seen several presentations I've done over the years relating to Archicad templates. It's one of the topics that I'm actually most passionate about because essentially it's the cornerstone to how we create and deliver information as architects. Now, what I'm looking forward to seeing the most from Pedro's perspective is how he's been making his templates. I'm looking forward to learning something and then going away next week and, making changes to the way I work in terms of lessons that I can learn from his perspective and what he's been doing over the last 2 decades in his use of Archicad. But hopefully today we're going to learn a little bit about how we can optimize your project standard or setup, standardize your workflows, and leverage your template features to boost your productivity. Now, throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat. Now, at the end of Pedro's presentation, I will ask your questions on his behalf or on your behalf. Now, I'd like to hand you over to Pedro, and I look forward to your presentation. Thanks very much for your time today, Pedro.
Thank you. Good morning, guys. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, all the team at Graphisoft, for this opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here. Hopefully, I will be able to show you something that you don't know. Hopefully, if not, it's just a good excuse to discuss this. As we were discussing before, templates are one of my favorite topics, and it's something that I could go on for hours discussing. We don't have hours. Let's go. We have just 40 minutes. Let me just start off by saying the reason why I decided to bring you this topic today is because I'm not going to share the details, but we in our practice we work with several offices. We have collaborations with other offices, and we have the chance to discuss with many BIM managers and different approaches and different perspectives on how the software should be used or it's meant to be used. And recently, the day I was invited to do this, I had a very strong discussion about philosophically for what is the purpose of having a template and what it serves for. And I thought that this could be my perspective because we didn't see eye to eye that occasion. But what I feel that nowadays we talk a lot about BIM and talk about ISO and everything else, and we forget that at the end of the day we need to produce some documentation, and the software is here to help us. And if it's the template, it's the tool that you have to help you produce, not to be faster. And for me, that's the purpose of having a template, is to streamline your work. It's not to I mean, with all respect for everything else, but if you consider that you're doing BIM, most of the time we're not doing BIM. Our clients don't want BIM, don't need BIM. We need to produce some documentation. What I'm going to do today is that I'm going through even our failures, because as I was saying before, we learn from mostly from our failures, and the successes very often don't teach us anything. We don't even know why we succeeded sometimes. So I will start off with some projects that we did, show off some things that didn't work, because I think you will learn from that. And I will go through what we were what the kind of documentation we're producing and how it's going to be achieved. And I will show you a little bit of our template. Feel free to drop some questions. I will gladly answer later on. Without further delay, let's go on. So as Nathan was saying, I've been using Archicad for 20 years now, maybe more or less, or even more. Since the beginning, not all the time doing BIM, as you might wonder. It's because the first years it was mostly CAD software for most of the offices I worked. Nevertheless, I've been working with it for 20 years. So since the beginning, it was very clear that I worked with offices that don't have a template and with offices with a template. It was very easy to understand that the offices who had standards and rules and templates were much more. It was easier for me to work with them, and the level of documentation in quality and speed was much higher. So once I created my office, this one with Chiara, I decided to bring all my experience and said first of all, because we were a very small office, just 2-person, and so we needed, but we had big expectations of what we wanted to do. So we thought that one of the ways of being able to compete with other bigger offices was to increase our productivity, because we knew that most of them were not really that good. They had extremely long hours of work for stupid things like changing the date on the layout, stupid, really dumb things. Nowadays, probably everything is a little bit more, everyone is a little bit more skilled, but in the beginning, it was not like that. So when we opened the office, we decided to go through. We had several, we didn't have great projects. So the first thing I'm going to show is a very good project we did, actually. Modeling wise, it's not our biggest feat. So let me start sharing. This was a project for House for the Elderly, I think. It's in English, the correct word. So we tried, of course, we have a 3D model. Everything was BIM, and I'm going to be very gentle because, as you can see, the model is not perfect. Somehow we managed to take off all the documentation correctly, but it still required a lot of 2D because things like this it didn't work perfectly. I think we didn't have the experience enough to handle this. It was a very big project. We didn't know exactly how to do. And what I'm going to, and in a way, was an experience in doing projects, to be honest, okay? Because it was a very big project. We decided to do things wrongly. For example, we have hundreds of composites, hundreds, etc. So the modeling strategy was wrong to the goal we aimed for. So we managed to do everything, but with a lot of 2D rework. It took us months. It was still great. The model didn't serve for the client. It was just for us. In construction, nobody used the model. We were really, to be honest, it was not our finest moment because we invested a lot on this, and we were hoping that it would be productive for us to do this way. And we actually, it wasn't. I'm not sure if it was. It was great for us as an experience. We learned a lot from it. For example, how not to use composites, how not to model. It was mostly how not to do stuff. Okay, we'll get to it. So, for example, every wall here was a composite. Every wall, everything together, it was a mess. Okay, so but it still produced great drawings and etc. So, point forward, we had a template to do this. Okay, we just didn't add the experience. So first of all, everybody fails. It's going to, the first times it's not going to do great. The thing is that I would, as my first advice, I would say that you should start thinking about the documentation you need to present and think about the project. Forget about the software. Think about what you want to produce and the information you want to produce, and think about how the software can help you out doing that. Not the opposite, not the other way around. Not about the features or the software. Don't get me wrong, Archicad is great, but you are the architect. You're in charge, so you need to know how to do that. So fast forward a couple of years, this is the project one of the projects we're currently working on. So modeling wise, I think we are much better now. Hopefully in 10 years we learned something. So it's not complete, but and it still had some problems. But from here we adapted different strategies. And actually this project is not on our template, which was one of the biggest obstacles in the production of this project. It's consuming us a lot of time because we don't know the standards, or everything that we need to do is made from scratch. There are no views, there is nothing. So it's modeling wise, it's great. It's a great project. Everything, it's very interesting, but and you can see that I think we raised a little bit our level. This is the project we're working in that I was talking about. It's a very big project, several modules, and it's nothing turned on here. But as I was saying, the thing is that here there are, for example, very few favorites. It was very hard, and to be honest, it was even how do you say, from the perspective of a manager, to motivate my team was really, really hard, because they were sad most of the time, because they didn't understand how things needed to be done, the procedures and etc. Which is okay. Every office has its own its way of handling stuff. But it was not clear for us, and we worked with several offices with different perspectives, and we adapt to it. But to be honest, in this one, we felt that it was the template was still a very ongoing effort, and it was not ready for something as big as this. So it was very, very hard. So fast forward. So let me show you what we've been doing and the way we've been doing stuff. So starting off, I would pick up a very nice project that you have and think about the stuff that how you explain your projects. And I mean, you can look at my drawings and say, I would never do things like this. This is not the way I want to, and it all good. But again, think about the things you want to do. This is how we explain a project. So this is our way of presenting a project. So this is the kind of the level of detail we want to have in our projects, the documentation we need. It's almost, if you're going to see something like this. So the template was built to produce this in the fastest way possible, okay? So the project is something that you cannot control the time it's going to take, but the documentation is something where you can waste less time, okay? So all of these, since, for example, the way we explain finishes, wall coverings, the walls, etc., all the floors, the ceilings, etc., it's mostly automated, okay? We have a rule, a way of doing stuff, and we always do it the same way, okay? So this is all of this documentation is produced, I would say, almost automatically from Archicad, because there's also always some 2D work, of course, mostly labeling and dimensioning, all of this stuff. But we aim to do all the things that we want from there. So, for example, all of this is so our template was built to do this. Okay, so let's go on to our template directly. It's over here. All the documentation you saw came from here. So as you can see, the modeling wise, this is a very, very detailed model. And all of this was done with our template. And actually it was probably since the last version we did with the template, because we are always improving it. It was the first project where we applied almost everything. So our template, we do a lot of renovation. So we have views for everything. So everybody, when you start doing something, you have all the views that you need for every scale. We'll talk about it. So I know that there are several different strategies doing things. We do it by scale. We don't do it by stage, because there are projects where we submit and then we use different scales. For example, a very big project detailed wise would be 1 to 50, but in some projects they are so big that we have 1 to 100 and 1 to 50. So it's for us it makes more sense to do by scale. But we have hundreds of favorites, and I would stress out this, but we'll go on to this. And this is producing all the documentation almost automatically, So everything is here. We don't do, nobody know. I'm going to explain this, but if I have a new team member, I don't have to teach him Archicad, where are the layers, etc., because they don't need to know it. Everything was thought out before. And if it doesn't exist, we will create. But okay. So over here, just to let you know, the template will reflect also the way we model. Now we don't model this as one complete wall, and this is a rule. It's in our BIM manual. Everybody knows how we model, and the template has different finishes for different favorites for all kinds of stuff. So, for example, we were talking this earlier on with Nathan. The concept design is the most hardest part to handle in a template, because a concept design is where usually there is more creativity in the presentation, so you don't know exactly how to do, but we still have some favorites. And over here, they're more generic. So you have only outside walls, inside walls. But when you go to a detailed project, you have much more things like how do you say, bricks, and then wall finishes, all kinds of wall finishes. I will stonework, wood, steel. Okay, all of these things are done, and everybody knows how to use them. It's very, very simple. Our approach and this is done in all the projects, all the favorites. Usually when you start off, you have the right one. So so I would say that favorites are your best friend if you're handling a template. That was one of the fights I had with another BIM manager. For me, I don't understand how people don't use favorites. I really don't. For example, I don't have to teach most of these here. It's completely useless for our team, okay? Because they only do this. They are architects. They don't need to know the proper classification, or some people in the team do need to know, but not everybody else. And then there is quality control to assure that. And our template has also tools for quality control. We'll delve into it in a few minutes. So our approach to favorites is a very high level. So we just want them to forget about classifications, position, load bearing, non-load bearing, layers, representation. Everything is thought out for them. They don't need to do this. The only thing they need to do is to make their create the project, and that's we've been dreaming about turning off this in Archicad for everyone. That's my personal dream, that people don't have control over this stuff. The day I succeed in doing this, I think we achieved the final goal. So, guys, for me, favorites are the most important thing. I'm not going to teach you how to do a template. I'm going to go through the things that I think are my lessons learned and the things that I think you need to handle to boost your productivity. And here it is. Okay, so about favorites, there are several schools of thought. Some people want very concrete, and as I said, I don't believe in that. I have several projects. Hopefully they don't look the same, all of them. We never use the same technical solutions. We never use the same windows. It's probably business-wise not the smartest way of doing business, but that's the way we work. Every project is a one and only design. We don't replicate stuff. So our favorites have to be on a very high level. So and have to give a lot of freedom to the team. So that's what we do. So after that, so as I was saying, the favorites are doing this, and they enable us to start producing very, very fast. We can put someone in the team like this week, and in 2 weeks they will be producing this kind of documentation. No, the only thing that the problem for them would be not knowing how to build. The problem won't be the software, okay? And I don't understand how people say that they have to train people and give training like hundreds of hours. It's not true. It depends on where you want people to go to. If you want people to produce, to work as architects, they need to have a certain level of knowledge of the software. The BIM manager and the BIM coordinator need to be on a different level, and that's okay. And that would be my second advice for you, okay? So don't think about features. Software is great and it has a lot of features, but we don't produce, we architects don't produce features, or we don't use features. We produce projects, and features are there to help us out. Think about more workflows. So that's what I was saying, that we use these favorites. We decided long ago the way we want to model and the documentation we want to produce, and everything is built around that, okay? And it's not being done for the people that knows more Archicad in the office. It's being done for the people that knows the less, because this is the person that you need to help out. Because the other ones will handle all these buttons and all these things. It will, for them, it's easy. For the other guys that arrived like 2 weeks ago, aren't very skillful with software, and we all have friends that don't love software, and so this is the idea. So the other thing that, of course, attributes are important, but understanding our attributes and the way you should do a template is very important. But my goal is my goal today is to explain you how the other way around, not how to do a template, what you want to have from a template. Okay, so for example, another stuff that, for example, people don't probably use in their advantage is classification systems. And properties, people use properties, but classification systems, they don't think about it. They only think about classification systems for IFC and ISO. We thought out, and we're still working on it. It's not a complete work. We are trying to do this, but it's still working more or less. But we created classification systems for the purposes of our office. So, for example, when we want to do quantity takeoff, we have our classification system that enables us to state where the things are going to be measured. Okay, if it's a wall, and if it's a wall, in which chapter is going to measure it. Okay, and of course, each one of them has some properties attached. I can explain a little bit about this, but this enables us to really fast, and I mean, in a house like this, we can do quantity takeoff in an afternoon. Okay, which is, and it's not coming out straight out from Archicad, but it's one person with a model and the other one in Excel, just copying numbers and writing up the descriptions, etc. The goal would be in the long term to do everything from Archicad, but it's still an ongoing process. Okay, for simple stuff, it's possible. For big stuff, it's a little more cumbersome. So it has properties attached. And for example, in this case, this is something that it's very useful. Probably it's not the smartest way of doing. Some people that know a little bit more about this, but you can select the way it's measured, if it's in the quantity of stuff, if it's in length, square meters, or volume. We have favorites for detail for every stage. So concept design is estudo prévio, and detailed is projeto de execução, and they are a little bit different. Okay, so wall finishes, bricks, interior, exterior. So, and this enables us to eliminate this from all of this bottom part, for everyone at the office. They only need to be concerned about the top part of the settings. Okay, so the project. And for me, that's I would say that's the feature of our template, because it's well structured for the way we want to produce documentation. And I mean, I think we're doing some pretty neat stuff right now. So so it's working. It's been several years. We don't need to update the template, so it's working. So, and we have a new team member every now and then, and in 15 days they're producing like everyone else. Okay, so I think it's a success. So, and for about going back to the classification, because you haven't seen this. As I said, we use classifications, or of course we have Archicad. In this case, we have two. I don't know why, but we have classifications for systems that are for us. Okay, so for example, for quantity takeoff, this is the chapter when everything is measured with the properties, okay, attached to it. So if you select something like this, it's going to be measured as plasterboard, okay? And this means that it's going to be measured in square meters, okay? And this will be handled out for Excel. We have tables and we export them. Everything is ready here. So we have all the schedules for quantity takeoff here. And this is export, and then the descriptions are worked, and graphically it should be worked in Excel. We still haven't managed to do everything here. So I was saying that the properties around that are very specific. For example, you have the unit where it's being measured, as I told you before, the way it's measured, and then the actual quantity it's going to take off. And we thought about putting the price tag, but it's still it's not working. We need to think about it a little bit. It's working, but as I told you, I think about workflows. It's not faster than doing it in Excel, so it's useless. Okay, so we haven't figured out a way of really increasing our productivity using this. So we use it as far as this. We just want the quantity. It's perfect. It understands exactly what we want. The numbers are perfect. We had the chance to compare them with a quantity surveyor, so it's good. So it's working. We also have classification systems for areas, and this is something that we shouldn't use zones on top of zones, but sometimes we use volumes for or fields, but usually we tend to prefer to use solids, and we classify them as areas or gross areas. Okay, we classified our zones in our system, so this enables us to take off some quantities based not on layers and etc., but based on classifications, which I tend to prefer. Okay, so and this handles most of the things. So as you can see, the template is mostly prepared for detailed projects. That's where I think we are pretty much. It's because of several reasons. As Nathan told, we were discussing with Nathan, because concept designs are very hard to tackle, because we don't do concept designs. They tend to be, you are very creative in that stage, and you cannot standardize creativity. So it's very, very hard. But in detailed projects, it's very important. And also, I would stress out that probably it's the area where you spend more hours in the project. So that's where also where the money is. So that's where you spend more time in the project. That's where you have more costs, and you should be very, very careful with that. So that's where we aimed for a detailed project, and to do that perfectly. So in this case, going on for views, that's also something that it's very, very important. We do, this is not the case of this project, but we tend to do a lot of renovation. So we have views for existing, the project in itself. I don't know if you do this in most of the countries, you don't do this, but this is not the case. We need to produce some kind of documentation where the existing is black, the demolitions are yellow, and so I don't know if you use this, but we do have to do it, so everything is ready. And we have a fourth color that we needed to create a workaround in Portugal, because we have a fourth color which is something that it's illegal and you want to keep, and you want to how do you say, legalize it. You need to paint it blue. So we needed to create a graphic override that handles this information. So for example, also on the project, everything is done. So for example, if I need, oh, not working. Okay, so it's, why it's not working. So we need to have this graphic override that says that all the types that are classified as illegal need to have a different representation. So nowadays we added a line here if it's existing also, because if you get it wrong, only existing elements can be illegal. New elements are not illegal, never. So okay, so we added here. So as you can see, it's everything is built around the idea that nobody needs to create this. So also that we've been handling, and I'm going to show you a different version of the template, the one we're working right now. We decided we've been adapting stuff. So this is the starting page, so people know where to start. So one of the things that I did, and it's not consensual, but we've been doing layer combinations for each scale, everything to each scale. And for example, for plans, we have 150 plans, but if you go to sections, you have 150 sections. And if you go to elevations, 150 elevations. Why did we do this? For the BIM manager, it's a lot of work. So we have a lot of layer combinations, as you can see, in a lot of layers. But this was done once, and now it's easy. The thing is that sometimes you need to, in the floor plans, add a layer, and it's very hard for people to understand that if they turn on in the 100, all the drawings in 100 are going to be affected. And we are having an issue explaining this to people, and we want them to give them freedom. And now we just do this, turn them off for the 150 plans, and it's clear. I know it's more complicated here, but for them it's easier. Actually, we made it complicated to be easier for them to edit, and this is true for a lot of stuff, because we're doing the same thing for graphic overrides with the same structure. This is something that we've been working on for now. We're trying to give model views. We've been doing to be consistent. So if you want to edit something, you're editing only in a very specific set of drawings. And I know that everybody teaches that the template should be small, should not have many layers, should not have, but actually in this case, I don't agree. For us, it's working better, actually. And it's very easy to explain to people how it works. Okay, so very, very easy. So overall, I think I would have hours and hours, but I think we need to start addressing questions.
Let's start off with a question from Nicola. And I liked a lot of these questions, Pedro. These are good questions. Where is the silver line between constantly updating your template to be useful and making it polluted so you need to clean it all over again?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have a right question. For example, we've been using this template, I'm not sure, since Archicad 17 or some, and we're now adapting it. We're correcting stuff because Archicad evolved, we evolved, so we need to update it. I would say that I don't do an update every single version of Archicad. It's mostly when you feel that you can do better. I don't like, you want me to say 2 years, 3 years, I don't know. When we feel that we can do better, and I'm going to be strictly very honest about this, most of the stuff that I'm doing, I stole it from other guys. Or from their mistakes. I learned a lot from them. So when I see something that I think that can increase my productivity or the way or make just better looking drawings, whatever, we corrected the template. We're constantly correcting mistakes. Okay, we have a list of ongoing issues that we have to address. Every time we do a project, we detect a new anomaly and we solve it. But I would say that if you feel that you look at your friends and they're doing much better stuff and much faster than you should update your template.
Yeah, I think the key thing about templates is that you actually need to have a plan in place before you ever execute anything in Archicad as a template. It actually prevents the mess and the pollution because you're actually planning before, it's like the measure twice before you cut once. I think that's the approach that I think is the best way to address it from my perspective. Now, this one I'd like to kind of follow on from that kind of question that Nicola put forward. And what's your process for managing updates? Now, obviously, we're constantly iterating, right, as we find new ways around doing things better. When you're updating it, how are you actually keeping track of the templates that you're using for each project in your practice? So, quality assurance in some ways in terms of knowing what processes are in place for one project, but then slightly possibly different for newer projects as you are iterating your template as you go.
So if the template is, if we're not making revolution, so usually it's a steady, very slow, small changes that are done. So if it's something very important, we can go back to a file that we're working on and correct it easily. You can transfer a property or a beam, everything, building material, whatever, even favorites. We can, but usually the rule here is that we we never replace the version of the template. We start working with the project with a certain version of the template when we finish with that one. Okay, it's very cumbersome. If it's something very big, it can be worse for the project to try to force the new template on top of a project that was not thought out in the beginning to be done like that. So my rule when I because I also do some implementation, is that I never go back. You start a project, you finish. You need to learn the lessons, and from the errors you do in that project, you should take something to the template, but not the other way around.
Yep. And in terms of how you're managing that process, so in terms of kind of like the ISO 9001 quality assurance system type approach to things, are you finishing off a project or during a project taking notes down in terms of some of the things that have caused grief or areas that you have kind of implemented into a project that could then get rolled into your template itself? You know, at the moment I manage like a Notion page for myself personally where I note down things. How are you managing those sorts of, you know, lessons learned?
We have a much less technological solution than the Notion page, but we have a note. We have a shared note at the office. It's a very small office. Everybody can add even their complaints or whatever.
Yep.
We look at them and we address them. If it's solved, we just delete. And if the list starts to be very, very big, I'm worried. And if it's small, I'm okay with it. So
well, it's a tough thing.
You need to track down these issues. Okay, it's not, you cannot say it in the air that there is a problem here and it won't solve itself. So you need to keep track of it. And also, like most offices, you have a lot of work to do, and you cannot be constantly on top of this. So you need to select some periods of time where you stop everything and you do some spring cleaning. So this list needs to be updated constantly, so you know what to address, and then we prioritize. Like, this is very urgent, this is a very big problem, and this is something that it can wait for a little bit longer.
Yep. I'm just going to jump down to Mohammed's comment at the bottom about summarizing what we, I guess, talked about. I just want to make sure you pay attention to the couple of questions that I've got coming up, which should hopefully clarify, I guess, and give you the takeaways that you're hoping to achieve from this webinar in terms of Pedro's thoughts on Archicad templates. But going back to Rule's question, how does your template work with models sent from different programs? So have you got processes put in place for receiving files from various consultants? Say, for example, Stefan's question also touches on 2D workflows. So have you got processes in your template for dealing with files from consultants working in Archicad, AutoCAD with DWGs, and say Revit or other software platforms with IFC? So a pretty holistic question.
Yeah, so let's go back. Unfortunately, most of the consultants we have still work mostly in 2D. So nowadays we have some consultants that we start having with different softwares. So, and mostly through IFC. And of course, you have translators and rules to how to do that. It's an ongoing process because it's always the same consultant. So I think we're trying to perfect the thing that we have more or less always the same team. So our goal is to make it easier for everyone. So between these two offices that I'm thinking about a very specific team that we work with, and everything is handled. I send them our model, they send us their model. It's always perfect, no problems, because on the other side, there's also someone that knows a lot about what he's doing. And you need to have smart people on both ends. So, and for example, with 2D, we have, which is more common, we have also, how do you say, a workflow. We don't use XREFs, we don't glue 2D drawings from other softwares on our projects. We don't want their layers, we don't want their attributes, we don't want anything. So, for example, in that case, we usually work with worksheets and place them as a reference. And if we want something, we explode. I think you've seen this workflow somewhere. It's very common. You explode stuff and you just pick up whatever you want, because placing drawings in workflows works perfectly. And we started having some problems with DWGs that were glued and ruined everything, hundreds of attributes. It was a mess. We decided that this is much, much more effective. And we started having less problems in files. So because sometimes these files are corrupted and bring stuff that you don't want to. So it's in this case, the template, there is no way of helping out in the template. This is something that has to be in a BIM manual. The procedure you want people, it's a workflow and we have a workflow to do that. Okay.
And have you got in place workflows for IFC yet? And bring those in? Personally, for me, it's same with DWGs. You cleanse them outside of your project first to get rid of all of that mess, right?
So with IFC, we've been trying, and so far we are happy, not 100% happy. For example, in this the very big project, we are having issues. We don't know why. For example, some columns are coming that are empty. It's just faces and have no, and we see it in the other software or in Solibri, etc. It's perfect, but we don't know why. But usually we tend to prefer to import them as morphs. Yep. We want breps, everything. Those are the things we can handle for geometry. We export everything as brep. We import everything as morphs. It's where we're getting better results from so far. The way we are getting better results.
And it means you can deal with all of the attribute issues that you have. Yeah. You can thank me for hassling them several years ago with that. And all of those nice settings got put in.
Yeah, and the origin, we are only using the project origin. We not survey points, everything. Nothing. We had very bad experiences with that.
It's because Revit handles survey points 3 ways versus Archicad that has 2 in it now.
So
now, extending on this question even further, in terms of collaboration and dealing with different files, you mentioned throughout the presentation that you're working with several other practices. When you're working with these other practices, are you working in Archicad side by side? How do you choose which practice's template gets used for delivering those projects? You talked about having some great arguments with other BIM managers. You know, I enjoy a good debate. You know, did you win? You know, how are those projects delivered?
It depends. Okay, it's collaborations, but usually there's one office that brought the project or accepted that as. It's not the rationale should be what is the office that has the better procedures in place to do this, but it's never. Usually, it's not. It's politics. It's which office manages the project, and everything has to be done that according to that thing. With some collaborations, we have our template and we have a template for another office we worked with several times, and it's a template specifically made for projects for them. Okay, so it's their way of doing stuff, but streamlined. So I don't want to do that manually hundreds of times. We decided if that's what you want, here it is. So there is nothing, one of the things I want to say, there is no perfect template, no generic template that suits everyone and everything. So ours is definitely not perfect for you, probably. It's perfect for us, for the things we're doing right now.
And that's the important thing to note, is that a template is regional. A template is specific to a specific practice, and you know, it's also specific to the skill sets of the users that you have within your practice. I just want to cover off on one question before I delve into my final set of questions to kind of, I guess, wrap this whole thing into a kind of like the massive takeaway that I think that everyone will gain from it. This final question I want to ask that's been placed into the chat, with the template you have now, how much of the process, are you still using detail lines? So I'm guessing that might be, you've demonstrated and showed a lot of work there where you had a lot in 3D. How much of the documentation requires you to put in 2D workflows over the top of that, that aren't taken directly from the model? I think that might be the question that's being asked.
Okay, so mostly details. I would say that we can go directly to 120 in scales to anything from to 120, 110. It's completely model driven. After that, it can be part model driven with some 2D elements on top of it. We usually try, even if it's 2D, it's never trying not to be completely 2D. Okay, it's because if we do an update to the project, we want to have less rework to do. So it's. But I would say that everything you see up until 110, it's model driven. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
no, that makes a lot of sense, and that's where I'm guessing you have some well executed or well set up modeling standards that you got your team members that they've got to work to. So that's kind of what's driving the higher quality model, which then generates the free documents.
yeah, listen, a lot of library part maker, a lot. It's something that it's a favorite here. And the fact that the way we model, I stressed out in the beginning that we wanted to do composites because it's the way it's meant to do. You can do, but it's not the easiest way to model. So when you open the doors, like I don't want to use the software, so I want the software to work for me, and it's different. So that's why we achieved the models with that quality of drawings and etc. Because we started splitting things in the way that it was good for us, for the quality of we wanted to achieve. Okay.
Yep. Now, this webinar made a lot of sense to me, but for those that are possibly watching, they may not have understood the terminology or the specifics around it. So what I thought I'd do to help Mohammed in this would be to kind of ask you a rounded question at the end. So let's first of all talk about the objectives of what people would learn from today's conversation. And it was about optimizing project setup processes, standardizing workflows for team collaboration, leveraging template features to boost overall productivity in Archicad. So with those being the fundamentals of what people would take away for today, I have one key question for you. And the key question for you is that if you are to build a template to optimize the way in which your practice works, what are the fundamentals, in your opinion, that need to be considered with the production or producing a template of value and use? And obviously some of them are relating to features within Archicad, and others are things that are more relevant to outputs and the like.
So as I stressed out a little bit of what I think, for me, in terms of features, I would say that favorites are if you don't have favorites, you're not using Archicad to its full potential, because you're wasting a lot of time doing stuff, just clicking on buttons, and that's not the point. We're not meant to do that. Most of us are not meant to do that. I think that the software, you need to think that the software should be invisible. Okay, it should be something that it's there to help you, but it's not something in front of you. It's you're doing your project and the software is there helping you, but it needs to be the more transparent as possible, so you don't feel that you need to answer a lot of questions to do a wall, etc. Because that's not only not productivity wise very smart, but it's also very how do you say, depressing for people that time consuming, but also depressing for people who are working in art that don't have the skills, because I mean, we all have friends that are not very good with computers and etc. And they still are good architects. We need to make them shine on where they're good. So I would say that favorites are like a feature. It's, for me, you can forget everything else that I taught, but favorites are the trick. And the most important thing is that I used to do templates for other offices, and I help even the ones I collaborate. And one of the third things, you need to know what they're doing and how they want to do stuff. So forget about Archicad. The first thing you need to do is to analyze the documentation that they produce, the kind of architecture they produce, and help them out. Even the wrong way they're doing things, and try to understand why they're doing stuff like that. So then you can understand and say, you're doing it wrong. This is not the way we're going to create a workflow, but you need to understand the process. The trickiest part of doing a template is not Archicad. It's not the features. It's if you don't know how to do a project, if you don't know what you want from the template, you will never get it right. Okay, you need to know what you want from it.
That's exactly right. We have run out of time, but I want to ask this last question that's come up, and there might be one other one as well. We'll try and squeeze two in very quickly. Arul has asked, I assume the template workflow works with mod link files. Have you ever encountered a situation that the linked file ends up corrupting or providing attribute messes in your file? What do you do? Do you use another template like a backup?
With mods, I mean, we tend to use, most of the times we have small projects, but even that one is big, but it's not. We tend to use the iceberg method always because of attributes. Okay, it's exactly the reason why I force people to use most of the time. What we do usually is that we export them outside as mods and import. So, but if you create an attribute, it's always consistent. That's the way we're. I think this was the question. No,
yeah. Well, I think it was centered around if you did have problems. So my suggestion from that perspective would be to open up a clean file and then cleanse it. Essentially, clean the file that you want to bring in before you bring it into your main project. And I think that's the key. There are several other presentations that I've had. There's a presentation from Scott Moore from Fulton Trotter. I think it's actually embedded in the community now with relation to attribute management, which might be the issue you're talking about. So I'd suggest you have a look that up. We are 2 minutes over, and I'm a stickler for time, but I'm going to ask the final question. We'll close it out. A person called The Shadow. I always like people that use personas instead of their real names. I actually like people when they use their real name. I personally was working on projects that are mainly extensions to buildings, dealing with existing construction. Before proceeding with planning, we always have to deal with CAD files and documents from other people. Is there a specific strategy in this case on how to set up this process?
No, it's so what we do, we use the work, as I told you before, we use the worksheets, we put everything, never in a model space, anything coming out from consultants or topographical surveys and anything, nothing whatsoever goes into the model space. And then if you need to model, you need to model. It's going to take you, it's going to be time consuming, and that's there is no way to stream. If there is, I want you, please let me know, because I don't know a way of streamlining.
I personally just use one building material for anything that's existing. That's the approach that I take. You have to obviously capture all that information, bring it in, set it there in the worksheets, use them as trace references, then build things up. Pedro, Ruby has placed in that community post, which will talk about all those sorts of attribute issues. Pedro, thank you very much for your time today and sharing your insights. I hope people have taken away something. I always find that these presentations are great because you find little pieces of information that you can take and apply to the way in which you work. I hope that people have taken heed of your suggestions to implement favorites into their template. Personally, I'm an attributes first, then favorite second person. It's to me, it's something that I think that's mission critical for everything that we do. Strongly also agree with you with relation to actually beginning with the end in mind. What have you actually got to deliver? Unless you don't, as you said, if you don't know that, you're not going to know what's going on. But thank you very much for your time today. Thank you very much for everyone for attending. Thank you very much for your questions. And I look forward to catching up with you again in July for our next webinar from our community webinar series. So thanks very much. Have a great evening, morning or afternoon, depending upon where you're watching from. Thanks very much.